Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. What I'd love to do this morning is go through a book and go on a walk and talk whilst I'm here at the main quadrangle at Sydney University on this overcast and cool Sydney autumn morning. The book that I've selected to talk about this morning is entitled Between Two Kingdoms, a book that was published on the 9th of February 2021 and authored by Suleika, Jaouad. So this book is a memoir, but it's just not a simple story. The author breathes it. Her voice carries the weight of her story, steady but never detached, raw yet never self-indulgent. The way she tells it, you don't just hear about her life, you feel it in your bones. And once you step into her world, you can't walk away unchanged. This book isn't just about illness. It's about survival, identity, and the impossible task of figuring out how to live after you've been told you might not. It's about what it means to exist between two worlds, the before and after, the sick and the well, the known and the unknown. So let's go and have a chat. Let's walk, talk and think and see what we can take from this wonderful book. The first key message to come from the author is that we are all living in a before until we're not. Suleika was 22, just stepping into adulthood when leukemia ambushed her. One day she was a young woman with dreams and plans. The next, she was a patient. Life has a way of drawing a hard line between before and after, and none of us know where and when that line will come. And this hits us hard. We move through life assuming there will always be time to fix dreams, time to fix relationships, time to chase, and time to become the person we want to be. But what if time is shorter than we think? Between Two Kingdoms forces us to ask, what would you do differently if you knew your before was about to end? The next key message to come from this book is that illness doesn't just affect the body, it rearranges everything. Suleika's cancer wasn't just a medical diagnosis, it infiltrated every part of her existence, her relationships, her sense of self, the way people looked at her. Suddenly, she wasn't just Suleika. She was Suleika with cancer. Listening to her describe how the world began to treat her differently is indeed an eye-opener. People fumbled for the right words. Some people actually disappeared. Others tried to wrap her in suffocating kindness. And it makes you think, how often do we reduce people to the hardest thing they're going through, and how can we do better? The next key message is that survival is only the first battle. The world loves survival stories, but what happens after the miracle? Suleika takes us past the moment when the doctors declared her cancer-free into the uncharted, messy territory of trying to live again. This was one of the most unexpected gut punches that you can get from this book. We think beating illness is the happy ending, but she shows us that healing is indeed complicated. The body recovers before the mind catches up. The world moves on while you're still learning how to exist outside of survival mode. It makes one realise that some battles don't end when we think they do. Sometimes healing requires distance. After years in hospitals, Suleika embarked on a trip across the country, visiting strangers who had written to her during her illness. She needed to step away from everything that was familiar to her to understand who she was now in her new state. Hearing her recount those miles, those encounters, can make you think, how often do we expect ourselves to heal in the same places that we were broken? Maybe sometimes we need distance, a change in scenery, a new rhythm. Healing doesn't always happen when we expect it to. Not everyone knows how to show up is another message and another lesson from this book. And what we learn is that's okay as well. One of the hardest parts of Suleika's journey was realising that some people she loved simply couldn't handle her illness. Some friends pulled away. Others didn't know what to say, so they said nothing at all. It hurt, but eventually she learned to accept it. The lesson stuck with me deeply. When we're in pain, we expect the people in our lives to show up. And when they don't, it feels like another wound. But Suleika's story teaches one that something is freeing. People's inability to show up is about them, not about you. Sometimes they're dealing with their own fears, their own limits, and sometimes learning to forgive them is part of the healing. You can find connection in the most unexpected places is another message. As Suleika travelled, she met people from all walks of life, each carrying their own stories and their own wounds. And in those strangers, she found reflections of herself. It makes one realise how often we underestimate the power of shared experience. The people who help us are most often aren't often the ones that we expect. Sometimes the deepest conversations, the most healing moments, happen with someone you meet on the road, in a letter, or in a chance encounter. And the last point to come from this book is that grief and gratitude can exist side by side. Suleika doesn't sugarcoat the pain of her experience. She lets us into her darkest corners, her anger, her fear, the way cancer stole years from her youth. But she also shows us moments of breathtaking beauty, laughter in hospital rooms, friendships forged in shared struggle, the way even the worst seasons of one's life can hold unexpected gifts. Listening to her voice, shifting between pain and joy, can help you understand something profound. We don't have to choose between grief and gratitude. We can have both. We can mourn what we've lost whilst still being able to live in awe with what remains. So thank you for joining me on this episode, and I look forward to chatting to you again. Bye for now.